this breaking information that we're just getting in the last 7 minutes, that he was convicted in 2002, Routh convicted of possessing a weapon of mass destruction. What do you make of this? How serious is a conviction like this? What are we talking about with a weapon of mass destruction? What does that typically look like?
Right. Well, first of all, what is the definition of that? Essentially, it's a weapon that can be used to cause a lot of damage to any sort of infrastructure or a large population. That can be radiological, that can be chemical, that could be nuclear, that could be explosive. So we don't know the exact details, but this is a very serious charge.
Yeah, certainly, Jennifer.
Yes, I have my own questions.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, sorry. I just wanted to ask Jennifer, because you're also a firearms expert. You spent a long time studying firearms, teaching firearms. Explain to us an AK-47 with a scope. They were very clear that he had a scope, and the president was 300 to 500 yards away. Is that close enough that he could have actually gotten a shot off and killed the former president?
100%. Anyone who is skilled and has a scope with that sort of a weapon can shoot accurately from that distance. I mean, we would practice those distances shooting small plates, and they would be shooting a large target, a man. So yes, very easy to shoot with a scope type situation and that particular type of weapon.
And Jennifer, I want to ask, a lot is being made of the level of planning here. That GoPro, for example, is it striking to you that this suspect fled in a car with no attempts to disguise his plates? And it does seem that that was a crucial element. The witness being able to spot those plates and report those plates, that was the crucial element that ultimately led to his detainment so soon afterwards. Wouldn't that be an obvious detail if this were a highly planned or highly coordinated event today? What do you glean from that?
Well, what I glean from that is perhaps he didn't care whether he was caught. I mean, a lot of these individuals try to do these sorts of crimes because they want the recognition, they want to be famous, and I believe that this individual knew he would likely be caught. He just didn't get accomplished what he wanted to get accomplished, but I don't think he cared whether he got caught or not.
Yeah, and Jennifer, why is the former president being allowed to golf at a location with a perimeter that is so difficult to secure, especially in light of the recent events in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Well, I would maybe ask the inverse of that, and that is, why isn't this protection detail more ramped up? Clearly, if anybody has done any sort of target analysis on President Trump, he is a large-scale target, meaning many people want him dead. And that is quite obvious with the fact that there's been 2 assassination attempts in about 9 weeks. So for that reason alone, he should be afforded more protection in his, throughout his day.
Yeah.
I want to know how they knew that he was going to be there at that particular time. I mean, he's set up and sort of waiting for the target to come along.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.